Hello, good morning, America. Good afternoon, Europe, Africa. Good evening, Asia and Australasia. This is Napapong Pongnapang, your host. I am ISRT Vice President for Asia and Australasia. And today we have our ISRT Facebook Live on the fifth series. And the topic of today is new normal in radiography education and training during COVID-19 pandemic. The reason why we have the topic for today is from the request from the audience, and we are very happy to have four radiography and radiological technology educators from around the world. We have four speakers for today, and I will introduce the first speaker first from Indonesia. Selamat malam, Indonesia. The first speaker is no one else other than our Indonesian Society of Radiography President, Dr. Sukiyanto. And tonight, based on Indonesia time, this evening, Dr. Sukiyanto will present his view as educator on this topic of new normal in radiography education and training during COVID-19 pandemic. Please welcome Dr. Sukiyanto.
Thank you very much to all organizing committee, especially for Dr. Nawapong Ponapang, Vice President of ISRRT Asia Australia, as the host, and Dr. Jutapon as the panelist, and to all speakers, my colleagues from around the world. Thank you, ISRRT, for giving me an opportunity to share my thought and experience regarding new normal in radiography education and training during COVID-19 pandemic. Let me share the PowerPoint. Let's look the map here. How pandemic COVID-19 affect the education. We can see that the blue one is only a few countries are still open the school, and most countries the school are closed, whether locally or in the whole country. Government of Indonesia has set out rules regarding shifting from large-scale social restriction to a condition called new normal. Affected areas are mapped and represented by four color zones, namely red zone, orange, yellow, and green. 11 business sector were excluded from restriction, even they operating in the red zone. For example, in hospital, food industry, energy, communication and information technology, finance, logistics, also in construction. And in education sector, it's about to be selectively open. However, only 4 schools located in the green zone, which is area with no confirmed case and or without travelers from the red zone. The main concern in education is health and safety of students, educators, families, and communities become the main issues in setting learning policies. Also in radiographers' education in Indonesia, also affected by pandemic COVID-19. There is 32 education centers or school in Indonesia. The main policies for radiography school is not allowed student in campus. Education process with online or blended learning. In certain conditions, students may have laboratory practice, should obey COVID-19 protocols. Permission from local government to open the school or campus, and also need adjustment for clinical practice or laboratory practice during pandemic COVID-19. How to implement education radiographers during pandemic COVID-19? There are three main components for implementation in radiographer education. This consists of infrastructure of ICT, the lecturer factors, and student factors. They need lecturer, both lecturer and student need certain skills. Lecturer must familiar with online learning management, also have ability to provide educational resources. And for the student side, they must have capability to acquisition of material and have a critical thinking. Ability to fully optimize ICT is a crucial skill for lecturer in online learning and teaching. Lecturer should understand about learning management system and other relevant social media. In implementing online learning, lecturer should be able to identify 4 quadrants of learning. The first quadrant, this one, is represent conventional or face-to-face learning. And during this pandemic, this quadrant is simply not an option. The second quadrant, third quadrant, and fourth quadrant are represent online learning. Upper quadrant means synchronous learning, whether online or offline, while lower quadrant means synchronous learning. Lecturer should consider carefully which quadrant more beneficial for learning. In this pandemic situation, I think they must shift from face-to-face learning to online learning. Competency or learning outcome can be defined as a combination of knowledge, attitude, and skills gained from an education or training. For cognitive learning, we can fully online, which is the most common option in this COVID-19 pandemic. For practical, technical courses, which require extensive hands-on or practicum, will not opt for fully online delivery. Blended learning could range 10 to 30% of the session to be held online and 70 to 90% for direct face-to-face meeting in the class or laboratory. This type of blended learning serves better option for course delivery to ensure student achievement. However, Conventional classroom would risk you for infection as you interact closely with the others. Classical meeting require execution of strict health protocols for protection. We also provide a kind of online learning, online continuing professional development with webinar in many subjects in radiotherapy, ultrasound, conventional radiography. The webinar event with various topics, and there are held in last 2 months. And the next event are scheduled with another specialization topics for CT, interventional radiology, or MRI. Hopefully, the events could help our colleagues to keep study and improve their knowledge about the latest technology, although in this pandemic situation. I think all. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Dr. Sugianto, for your very, very comprehensive talk. And I know that all Indonesian colleagues are very proud of you. And thank you so much for sharing this with us, radiographer friends from around the world. And I can see that PARI, or Indonesian Society of Radiographers, has done a tremendous good job in terms of doing the professional training for your members. And for the audience from home, if you have any question or comments for each or any speakers tonight, you can leave your message at the comments box underneath the video screen, or on the right hand side of the video screen, depending on the platform that you are using. And we will come back for the Q&A session with all the speakers at the end of the program. And the next speaker is our ISRT Regional Education Coordinator from America region, and he is Dr. Robin C. Hessler from Canada, and Dr. Hessler will share his experience about how COVID-19 has impact on the education and training in his country.
Hello, everyone. I would like to thank the organizers and the ISRT organization for the honor of giving this short presentation. My presentation will cover the topics listed on this slide. My appreciation to Carrie Brew and Mark Gibbon at the Canadian Association of Medical Radiation Technologists, or CAMRT for short, for their direct and indirect assistance in preparing this presentation. As this slide gives an overview of the size, the complexity, and diversity of Canada. Under Canada's Constitution, healthcare and education are the responsibilities of the 10 provinces and 3 territories, and for the most part, it is publicly funded. The provinces and territories have a lot of autonomy on how education and healthcare are delivered, and it varies even within jurisdictions. As this slide shows, we have 45 accredited programs in Canada which educate and train learners in the official disciplines of radiological technology, radiation therapy, nuclear medicine, and MRI. As provinces have autonomy for education, program length varies within a province and among them, from a 2-year diploma model to a 4-year diploma degree model. The territories are different, which I won't get into here as it is a whole different presentation. All programs are accredited through a national accrediting organization. All programs must teach to the national competencies established in the CAMRT's National Competency Profile. All program graduates must pass the CAMRT's National Competency Examination for their discipline in order to enter practice. This allows a graduate to practice anywhere in Canada without further examination. This slide lists the main impacts on faculty and clinical educators related to the COVID-19 crisis. Everyone was in uncharted waters. The challenges were enormous, but not insurmountable. It tested the creativity, improvisation, and adaptability qualities in all, including students. Educators realized that when they were stressed, they stressed the students, and the students being stressed impacted on the educators. So that was an issue that had to be tackled. The fact that normal workflow in hospitals decreased dramatically and lockdowns happened meant that clinical hands-on training was not possible, or it was severely limited, and educators had to deal creatively with that. The lack of PPE and changes of practice due to COVID-19 and the learners' welfare were also issues for educators, didactic and clinical, along with the question, how do we catch the learners up on their clinical practicum and keep them safe? The May national examination rate was coming up, and there were issues in some programs that the criteria had not been met yet. So what to do there? Another stressor. Adjustments had to be made and were done through good collaboration with CAMRT, who itself adapted to the situation. Many programs had and have limited resources, which, although it was a huge stressor, it was also a catalyst for innovative, creative thinking. What can you do with what you have was the question they asked themselves while trying to keep the focus as to required program outcomes. As the last slide showed, change had a huge impact, as change often does, especially the highly impacting change that COVID-19 brought. Adapting was the operative word. Educators and students had to adapt to the reduction and loss of clinical sites, which led to looking at augmenting clinical experience with simulation, the use of videos, animation, innovative PowerPoint use, and other teaching tools and strategies, as well as negotiating with clinical partners regarding providing clinical experience. Maximizing and leveraging existing resources when budgets would not allow purchasing new innovative technologies and teaching tools, or had the time to do so. Seeing what other health programs were doing within an educational institution, and thus maximizing interprofessional education and collaboration to see what could be adapted and adopted and co-used. This slide and the next one addresses the challenges educators faced in Canada, some of which I have already touched on in one way or another. This slide addressed the challenges internal to programs. The big challenge was dealing with fast-moving change, which often was a daily occurrence and very stressful and fatiguing for all. It brought anxiety and fear of the unknown, and all the while still trying to stay focused on the big picture. The graduation of a competent practitioner to provide high quality and safe patient-centered care. Internal to programs were and are the challenges of keeping faculty and learners safe, assessing resources they had not only within the program itself, but also within the institution that other programs may have, intellectually and material-wise. Rearranging program delivery sequence regarding the didactic teaching and the clinical teaching. Determining what viable technologies and teaching strategies can replace certain aspects of the clinical competency requirements, and transitioning to those such as online learning in an organized and planned manner. How to adjust program delivery so their learners would be able to write the national certification exam, and how to evaluate and validate the changes made. The main challenge in terms of looking externally is really about silos. Education programs in Canada tend to have a slight silo mentality in that they believe, generally, with well-established and set programs, that they have the expertise they need and do not really need to look outside the institution that much. The pandemic caused a shift to researching what more is out there, as they were in uncharted territory. We are in a global, connected world for the most part, so looking and interaction with other provincial and international jurisdictions needed to happen. Another major challenge was related to the CMRT's national certification examination and getting familiar with that. The CAMRT did a fabulous job in developing the online virtually proctored exam and briefing educators and students on that and setting up processes for those that missed the May exam due to the lack of clinical time. If you want to know more about that, then I recommend that you contact the CAMRT's Director of Education, Carrie Brew. Lastly, the challenge with getting learners caught up with their clinical competency requirements, which means negotiating with the clinical partners. So there have been a lot of lessons learned, with the key ones listed on this slide. Many I have addressed already during the presentation in one way or another. Programs still have to keep their integrity so that pedagogy should not give way to what seems to be the educational wave of the moment or panic, as it is easy to lose focus. Blended learning, simulation, and other teaching strategies have their place, but in the end, nothing replaces yet their interaction of learners with real patients. These tools and strategies can provide a better prepared and more confident learner when they go to their clinical settings, which saves time and makes the learner more effective with less strain on the clinical site. Learners are very adaptable. They want more experiences such as simulation, and they embrace it. IPE and IPC are sound doctrines that work and need to be utilized more. The assessment process is essential in terms of validating the changes made. That communications were not optimum as thought, internally or externally, and need to be more effective and transparent. The experiences of SARS was a great reference to build on. And as mentioned before, the virtual proctored CAMRT national exam was a success to build on. That ends my presentation. Thank you again to the ISRT for inviting me to give this short presentation on the new norm.
All right. Thank you, Robin, for your very comprehensive talk. I noted down a lot of keywords about what you have shared with us. That's, for example, clinical hands-on that has been changed, and also change in the a lot of things like simulation, and the teacher has to try with the animated PowerPoint. We will come back to you with this from the question that the audience has placed on the comment box. Let's move to another region that we have. We have one more speaker from South Africa, and she is the ISRT Regional Coordinator for Education. Also, we have 4 educators from around the world, plus our direction educator, Dr. Yutapon tonight. And also Hester Frederick Neal, she's from South Africa. She will share also her experience as an educator in South Africa.
Good morning, America and Canada. Good afternoon, Europe and Africa. Good evening, Asia and Australia. Thank you for the kind invitation to share experiences on how COVID-19 influenced radiography education and training. I share personal experiences as well as those from a few colleagues in South Africa who generously shared their feedback with me. To provide a context, I offer a brief overview of radiography education and training in South Africa. I'm also aware that the same education model is used in several of the Africa member countries, such as Ghana, Tanzania, Kenya, and Nigeria. That is, a 4-year bachelor or Bachelor of Science degree that is in South Africa offered by 4 universities of technology, 2 traditional universities and 2 comprehensive universities. The work-integrated learning or workplace learning or clinical learning is done simultaneously using a variety of models. In South Africa, the accrediting body is the Professional Board for Radiography and Clinical Technology, which is part of the Health Professions Council of South Africa. I remember that stories always begin with once upon a time. Somehow, I think that I will wake up and realize that COVID-19 was just a story and part of a bad dream. So I named this story Lessons from the Unknown. So once upon a time, in 2020, there was a university where the radiography students enjoyed face-to-face learning. Masks, physical distancing and PPE were not part of their routines. And then there was COVID-19, and with this, the unknown knocked at our door. May I remind you that in 1895, Wilhelm Conrad Röntgen explored the unknown, and do you remember, he discovered X-rays. So perhaps we will discover great lessons from the current unknown. Both our students and us were initially overwhelmed. We were unprepared and surprised, and perhaps we also experienced anxiety. Soon we realized that creativity and innovation is required to adapt to the working from home as we created new daily routines and working spaces. The reality was that we had to rework and adjust learning material to accommodate student learning, being mindful of the availability of student data, student devices, load shedding and other challenges. Many of our students do not have electricity while at home. They also live in spaces with their extended families without their own spaces for study. To adapt to the new normal, we had to compile daily work schedules and to-do lists. We had to take time out when the going gets tough to maintain a work-life balance, because traveling to and from work to unwind no longer exists. We had to redesign learning, first for the online environment and now for the phased-in on-campus learning. Groups must be smaller, so the work must be repeated 4 or 5 times, and not only for 1 or 2 groups. As educators, we had to consider flexibility. Our students operate with late night data packages. There is no question that it is time consuming to manage remote online teaching and learning. As I previously mentioned, we had to consider challenges such as connectivity, being data-wise, and how to manage online assessment, as well as the possibility of our students cheating. The situation once again emphasized the uneven and unequal spaces and societies. Some students do not have electricity, devices, and/or spaces to study. Luckily, our university supplied the students with solar power packs. However, we all agree, blended learning is the future. Emergency remote learning has definite advantages. All of us learned new skills to manage the online environment. Even our students learned to make plans to continue their learning. We managed to redesign theoretical learning, but the question remains, how do we effectively teach clinical skills in the online environment? We do not have the time or the opportunity to prepare our students or to equip a simulated environment, and video recordings are very data intensive. A valid question is thus, what will be the possible impact on patient-centered care and students' clinical skills? There are many more unanswered questions. SORSA was proactive and responded earlier this year with 2 publications in the South African Radiographer, volume 58 in number 1 in May 2020. There is an editorial by Leonie Munro, Do We Have a Roadmap for After the Pandemic? And in the same issue, an article authored by Rian van der Venter, Rethinking Radiography Education Amidst the Coronavirus Pandemic. I invite you to an interesting read by visiting www.sar.org. We have not yet seen the end of the pandemic in Africa and South Africa. Positive cases in South Africa increase every day. Once upon a time, we enjoyed face-to-face learning. We could see and appreciate the faces behind the masks and the PPE. The new normal in radiography education and training is so different, loaded with challenges that need new thinking every day. But we need to explore and use platforms such as this one to share lessons and success stories so that we can create a new normal in radiography education and training that we all can be proud of. Because Röntgen taught us, inside every challenge is an opportunity. I thank the ISRRT, SORSA, and colleagues who generously shared their information, as well as participants and viewers. Thank you very much.
Hello. Sorry for the technical difficulty. Thank you, Hester, for your sharing about the situation in your country regarding the education and training of your university system in South Africa. We will come back to you with the question from the audience. For the audience from around the world, I know that you are watching us right now, and if you have any questions or comment, please leave your question or comment on the box below the video showing on your screen, or sometimes it's going to be on the right hand side depending on the system. And we have the last speaker for today. He is also the lecturer at Cardiff University in Wales in United Kingdom, and Gareth Thomas will share with us his experience from the UK perspective. Please welcome Gareth Thomas.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I'm Gareth Thomas and I'm a lecturer in diagnostic radiography for the School of Healthcare Sciences here at Cardiff University. I'm also the international representative for the Society and College of Radiographers, United Kingdom. Cardiff is the capital city of Wales, and here is Wales, situated within the United Kingdom. Okay. We have our own government, separate from the United Kingdom, where matters concerning health and education policy are governed by ourselves. Cardiff University is the only member of the Russell Group of research-intensive British universities, and last year we have a graduate enrolment of about 24,000 students. For our diagnostic radiography program, we currently have approximately 93, we take 93 to 97 students per annum. Some academic facilities are centred around Cathays Park, here the main campus in the city centre, central Cardiff. The Heath Park campus, the health campus, is the home for our School of Medicine and Dentistry and the School of Healthcare Sciences. The School of Healthcare Sciences houses the following subjects and is the base for all academic learning here at the University Hospital of Wales. So, Cases of COVID-19 were becoming apparent in the United Kingdom. Our Prime Minister made an announcement that would have had serious ramifications to the delivery of our teaching. The senior management team reacted very quickly and to ensure staff and students remained safe. And in doing so, our method of teaching became an online force. I'm sure you can imagine this was a strange time for us all personally, and also our roles as educators. Within days, the situation was soon changing, and there was a sudden withdrawal and cancellation of all clinical placements. Safety was still paramount, and we ensured this was a priority. Unfortunately, the majority of our students had completed their final year clinical assessments, so they could get on the register to help out with the effort with the rising number of cases. Again, within 3 or 4 days, the 23rd of March, suddenly we were delved into a university remote learning approach. But we had one aim. Our one aim was to ensure business continuity as best as practically possible. And Cardiff University were quick to ensure that both staff and students may be worried, anxious or concerned about COVID-19 and the impact of remote working have on our well-being. Therefore, the university created a very Mind Matters support program. We also had an employee assistance program for equipment to be delivered to our homes to carry out our job. And also we were made aware and we were ensuring that we were continuing to uplift our level of pastoral care to our students. And soon the number of cases was showing that they were rising, and Welsh Government then approached us to provide skills and updates to clinical staff. Healthcare professionals were brought in from the traditional roles to the front line, and so we were on hand to provide the skills and necessary training they needed to provide the care required for COVID-19 patients. Us diagnostic radiography lecturers were also approached to help on the front line. Our second year students were offered to be redeployed to work with Welsh Government's track and trace system, as well as providing roles in health and nursing care throughout all the hospitals in South Wales. But we also have to be mindful that we had first year students about to come into the clinical placement on the 18th of May. We soon galvanized as a team to create virtual learning packages with our students using group online tutorials on a weekly basis with our students, creating quizzes, tests to keep them engaged and ensure that they were not forgotten. We are also conscious that clinical teaching is an essential component in the formation of a student's professional identity. Students rely on teaching, role modelling as they develop their communication skills. But through history, I'm sure students have all come to the front line when we've had situations with natural disasters. However, COVID-19 is different. COVID-19 is our concern that students could transmit the virus or contract the disease. And also concerning was our lack of testing, as well as the cancellation and of radiological procedures due to radiology departments prioritising work at this time. Also the lack of personal protective equipment for students. But how will COVID-19 affect the learning environment? The implications of social distancing. Social distancing is the most preventative strategy since the emergence of COVID-19. And pending the development of vaccine, our strategy is no longer going to be large-scale lectures, but small group tutorials. Clinical skills. How are we going to ensure that students gain the necessary clinical skills needed for their course? Well, We produced a lot of via online videos of clinical skills, of positioning for certain examination, donning and doffing of personal protective equipment. Other skills would be communication skills via role play with clinical staff. And we were also mindful of the transition from workplace to home, resulting in isolation but increased use of email for our students, and the struggles with differentiating work and home, which would affect both staff and students. So then we were confronted with utilising a blended learning approach. But what is blended learning? Well, blended learning, in my mind, is combining online educational resources and opportunities for interaction online using traditional place-based classroom methods. The benefits of blended learning is that it's convenient. The convenience, its ability, your ability as an educator to control the pace and learn remotely. It is comprehensive in that it ensures that students have an understanding of the subject. And it's also cohesive because the learners will learn and interact with each other and also learn with each other and yourselves. But there are pitfalls of blended learning. You're not going to be meeting all the needs of the students. Okay, you need to create a student engagement, ensure all students are engaged, and remember that your students are remember what they need to know, review the content, act on their feedback. Be mindful of creating a deeper learning phase. You not just talking 3 hours directly to the students where they can just shut off their laptops or their screens and start reading something else. You've got to keep them engaged, keep asking them questions, create breakout sessions for them to build more deeper learning. And also what we have learned here in Cardiff is to start this blended learning approach slow. Start it, this transition slow and steady to allow the students to learn and adapt to this new method. Initial findings have been that we are now a bit more mindful that students need to be reminded about due dates of assignments and exams, and how to submit assignments and to perform their examinations online. We've also found that recording messages via video is much more effective than an email. Seeing and hearing your voice is much more reassuring. Also reducing our lectures, to 30 minutes instead of 3 hours. Utilising other times, setting tasks, breakout sessions, allowing students to learn from each other, peer-assisted learning, and much more active and productive learning takes place. But there is uncertainty, okay? There is uncertainty about how long this virus is going to be around. What periods in the future will quarantines and social distancing may be required. We need to authenticate patient experience via video online content, and supportive engagement is crucial. Okay, we've also now had to defer clinical placements where to make up the deficit for the mandatory clinical hours. So you will find that, or we have found that we've now had to place students in together, second year and first year students together to make up that clinical time next year, and the impact of that what impact that may produce. But so far, the student experience has been positive. Students are much more engaged, and students more than often are taking part in our online tutorials. The feedback from our students has been very positive, and appreciate the work and how much the team have come together to make the students feel appreciated. We feel that the importance of setting work for each week and setting students' work and feeding it back to an online platform, again encouraging that deeper learning. Also remind students of your availability each week when you'll be around to provide that face-to-face interaction should things, for example, in their pastoral care, are not utilising the online notice board much more frequently in terms of due dates and changes in terms of the programme and the personal well-being, so notices as well. But in conclusion, we're all learning from this, both students and academics. The academic community coming together, producing a scholarly approach and practical solutions to be implemented. Planning and preparation is paramount for the dissemination. How are you going to construct your lessons, your online lectures to ensure that deep learning occurs? But also it's a time when both students and educators, we're all learning together through this. We're both contributing and analysing the effects of current changes to be learned and apply these principles and practices. And also lastly, it is a seminal moment for all healthcare professionals, not just radiography. We can all learn from each other through this. Thank you.
Thank you, Garrett, for your talk, and thanks also for keeping the time. I think now it's time for Q&A. And I think all the speakers are ready, and also our ISRT Director of Education, Dr. Yuttapon Vijayanin, he is going to be the panelist representing the ISRT today. I have recorded some questions from the audience. I got like 4 questions at the moment. And I want to go to the first question now from Indonesia, from Gatot Murti Wibowo. His question was, how do you measure the clinical competency among the students while they are not in practice in the clinic? And can we truthfully responsible for our students' achievement? That is the question from Gatot from Indonesia. And I think, to be fair, let Dr. Sugiyanto answer this as the educator from that country. All right, please unmute your microphone.
Thank you, Dr. Napapong. Yeah. In Indonesia, the learning process is still continuous. No postpone. That's why for clinical practice, right now, especially in clinical practice, we have to change the schedule. Yeah, we change the clinical practice in the end of semester. But right now, it is quite difficult to evaluate the clinical experience because there is no clinical rotation right now. So we usually give them a kind of a problem-based learning, make a kind of a video, something like that, and then to discuss and evaluate together. Discuss with other students and then what's the opinion of this case, something like that. But not really optimal, but this just the way we find. And in Indonesia, if they have a clinical laboratory or clinical practice, if they must use a simulated patient, we must have a strict protocol for health protocol. So right now, it is not allowed the student come to the campus still. So that's why we use a kind of problem-based learning and then sharing the video, give opinion, something like that to evaluation. That's all about.
Thank you. I think this is truly a challenge for us as educators worldwide, and for Indonesian experience. I think we are grateful to hear what you say, and we are on the same boat. I think. Let's hear from Canada also. Robin, the question I repeat again: how do you measure the clinical competency of your student? Because now they can't really go out for clinical placement.
Well, it's a very good question, and I think everyone is trying to figure it out. Really, that's what it comes down to. It all comes back to what's the relationship between the clinical partners and the educational institute. One of the challenges and a stressor is trying to figure out, okay, which tools work and which tools don't, and then how to assess. Because I don't think anyone really has an idea of what the best assessment process is in regards to trying to figure out, does this really make a person competent or not? The best guess is that what people are trying to do with various tools and strategies, which are non-clinical, is to say, okay, how well prepared can I get that student to go into the clinical setting and give them the confidence and give them at least enough education and training that they're able to interact with the patient more successfully, which is good for the clinical side, as I mentioned in the talk, in regards to more efficiencies within the department, particularly when they're trying to push patients through like an assembly line. So people are still trying to figure it out.
I do agree with you. Even at my place, my university, we have a wide variety of ways to measure the competency of our student, but it's so difficult, especially in some of the area that are limited access to the patient, and then from now we don't really have the access at all. All right. And I think we go to the next person. Hester, what do you think about this? How do you measure the competency of your student when you can't really have them 100% participate in the clinical placement?
Thank you very much. I believe if we had the answer, we did not have this platform today. But saying so, in South Africa, we were very fortunate that both the Minister of Higher Education and the Minister of Health realized the cry from the universities to say that, we have a challenge. We can focus on theoretical learning while we are on lockdown. And as they relaxed the lockdown measures, they allowed students who need the clinical environment to return to campus. And so what we are doing now at our university specifically is that, yes, students are split in groups. So some students may go in clinical practice where we can now help them to upskill them. And also we are using campus facility to do objective structured clinical assessment with students so that we can at least help them to update their clinical skills. So we do rely a lot on the simulated environment, but we can also use the real environment for now. Then the last thing is we also focus a lot on the students who need to exit this year. So our academic year only ends at the end of the year, so we are lucky we still have a couple of months to help those students to get well prepared for their real world. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm sure we'll do our best, everything we can to make sure that our students have that competency that we hope for. All right, and it's now your turn, Garrett. What's your answer for this?
We're all coming together and finding that we all got this problem, and we're just scrambling to try and find that perfect solution. And I'm glad we are not the only one in this predicament here in the UK. What we have done in Cardiff is use a lot of virtual learning through videos and also competency quizzes on a weekly basis to assess competency. The only thing, obviously, is that clinical competency, the interaction with the patient. And another method we have looked at is doing role play with videos and getting students to reflect on the video, to reflect on the communication skills in the group situation. Also film viewing, online film viewing and quizzes, and that's the best we can do at the moment so far. But we're all learning from each other, aren't we? I'm finding today.
Well, very good answer from everyone. And I think we can learn a lot from you, especially those educators who are here and also from home. And Yutapon, you have any comments on this and what have you done so far?
Okay. Let me show you the slide that what I did for the ISRT. Let me share the screen. Okay. What I did for the ISRT during the COVID pandemic is started from a few months ago. I have a discussion with Dr. Napapong and Donna to do open access online webinar for members around the world. Right? Dr. Napapong suggested to do the Facebook live and asked me to test the software platform availability to do the live for our member around the world during the pandemic. So first what I did, I test the private meeting with Napapong and do the test drive for the Facebook live to make it happen and found that it works. And then what I did, I used the Zoom meeting platform. It is selected to combine with the OBS software and streaming to the Facebook live. And the topic was draft by Napapong and discussed with the Donna and approved by the board, ISRT board, right? And we did a lot for this kind of the meeting in the previous 4 live already. So this is what I have done for the ISRT.
All right. And I think in this aspect of education and training is not limited only on our students. It also applies to our colleagues also around the world that professional society needs to provide us the continuing education platform. And this is what ISRTS is doing. All right. And I think we come to the second question from Pichi Luna from the Philippines. What she asked was, to all dear speakers, what do you think will be the greatest impact of the COVID-19 to the quality of learning of the radiography students and the effect of the new normal learning methods that education institutions in your country have made and observed? Do you need me to repeat the question? Right. Tishi asked, what do you think has the greatest impact on our education and training for the student? And based on your observation in your country, what does this new normal affect the way of teaching your student? All right, we start with Dr. Sugiyanto again.
Thank you very much, Dr. Napapong. I think the greatest impact in our country that the student right now must learn how to learn online. This is, I think, blessing of the pandemic COVID. I think it's quite difficult to force the educator and student to do the learning from online, but because of this pandemic COVID-19, they must study online. This is the greatest impact. So I think the institution must provide the good infrastructure of IT. Yeah. Also must provide the online management system, all online learning system, and for the teachers must also learn how to deliver the subject in online learning. And the other side, this is need creativity both for students and teachers to how to make a good success for the student. I think this no problem.
Thank you, Sukiyanto. And I move the same question to Robin. What is your experiences from your university in Canada?
Well, I would echo a lot of what was just said. I think what has happened is a refocus on the fact that the the student, the learner, is actually the center of what everyone should be doing, and what best experiences can we give those individuals. Certainly, it's highlighted the fact that technology and other strategies have to be considered, and they will be a new norm depending on what budgets can afford, things like connectivity, etc. It's a challenge, but certainly things like simulation and asynchronous and synchronous deliveries are here to stay. So the lesson is how do we, here in Canada, how do we manage that? How do we share that across the country from program to program? Because programs are different depending on the province. So I can't really say much more than what our last speaker said in terms of echoing the what I think is going to be the future, which is going to be more technology, but it has to be intelligently developed and planned and delivered.
Thank you so much. And let's move this question to Hester. Are you still with us, Hester?
Yes, thank you very much, Napapung. I am very much still here. So yes, the other speakers mentioned that, and also what I mentioned in my presentation is the greatest impact is on the patient and the clinical level of clinical learning. And yes, what we experienced, however, was that students came in and they showed different kind of soft skills all of a sudden. They showed more responsibility. They showed that they also want to make plans because we recognize this as a limitation and an impact that we have to make sure that the level of clinical learning is so that the patient does not suffer, or the level of patient care is not in any way disadvantaged. So yes, we were very proud of our students. This sort of self-directed learning, responsibility, and that is definitely positive amidst this whole pandemic and the negativity around the lessons that we can learn. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that means we have to adjust ourselves a lot also. I saw our colleague at home in my university, those senior professors, they have to come back and learn how to manage the computer software and how to do Zoom and how to do WebEx meeting and so on. It's quite a big challenge for us, but not only for us, for our students too. And Gareth, what do you think about this?
I think personally, when I look back and I can see we have a new intake coming now in September, and we've had to plan our scheme of work and look what lectures will be delivered online, what platform we'll be using. But what I'm mindful is that the student will be lacking that one-to-one sort of interaction with the lecturer, reading our body language in the lecture, in the classroom. And also that for the students sitting in a lecture theatre or classroom to learn from each other. And, they have that, as soon as they start our degree program, they're on a personal journey to create that professional identity as a healthcare professional. And I'm just worried that the impact of this virtual learning, that they won't be able to interact each other in the university, they won't be able to have that face-to-face learning from each other. So it's literally face-to-face learning. And I'm just really concerned that they won't have that university experience as other students have in the past. And that just concerns me for them to mature, to learn their communication skills. And they're actually not just, growing up and maturing, learning from each other and learning that university way of life. So that does concern me.
Thank you. And your answer leads to the next question. Really, we got one question regarding this issue about this is from Frankie from Indonesia. His question is that we for sure we start to have online and virtual education and training, but one thing that is the disadvantage of this system is that we lack of communication. What about communication skills? How do we deal with this as educator? Go back to you first, Dr. Sugiyanto.
Thank you. Yeah. It's quite difficult to measure the communication skill if they don't have a clinical experience in hospital. But we can provide a kind of asynchronous learning. That means that we have same time, the same date, and then discuss what we learn, assignment, something like that, and then discuss the assignment. So this is not really what we hope, but I think this is just help to support how to measure the communication between a patient and a student. I think it's quite difficult to measure how the student and patient have a communication. Yes.
Thank you. And I think we as a teacher, we are still in the process of learning on how to deal with this, you think, right? And also, what do you think about this, Robin? What's your experience about this? But we know that there's still a lack of communication skill for sure, because they can't meet, they can't interact. How do you manage this?
Yes, I touched on that in my presentation, actually. That was one of the things that was revealed across the country, that communications had come to the forefront as really needing to be reinforced, and that communications, although it was thought to be effective before because of the different types of learning and the non-socialization of the students because they were in isolation, etc., highlighted the fact that effective communications was a really a new need to look at, and it needs to be reinforced, even to the point where in some cases that effective communications, that's effective listening, effective speaking, effective writing, etc., needs to be reinforced within the curriculum, and students taught better how to do that. But also that communication factor comes up between programs and the clinical partners too, as to how you interact with them. And then how does the student who has gone through these new learning modalities, electronic, etc., how do the clinical educators that are in the clinical settings and those that are helping the students out, what kind of interactions now have to occur between them, because they've got a different way of learning things now, and they've learned different ways. So they're going to communicate with those on the clinical site in a different way. So that whole communication package needs to be reinforced.
This is very interesting. I think we can have another episode on this effective communication in radiography practice, because from the student to us, and also to the colleague that is practiced in the clinical environment at the moment, right? Hester, you still here? And I want to pass this question to you too about the one of the disadvantage of the online or virtual education, that we lack communication.
Napapong, may I be the devil's advocate here to say that even before COVID-19, we had problems with the communication between us and the student, and also between the student and the patient. So it's not actually a new problem. The problem has just COVID has just given it another face. And in South Africa specifically, we have 11 official languages, and that does not even include the language of the deaf now, which is a new language that it emerges, which shows to us that it's definitely a topic that we need to explore going forward. And this platform will really be such a rich platform where we can share best practices going forward. So our advantage is that our students are very comfortable using different kind of technologies, but it is something that we will have to keep on working on solutions. And unfortunately, as today, I cannot say what is the best solution, but it gives us more freedom to explore this for the future. Thank you.
So this is going to be an ongoing process, not only the effect of the COVID-19 that wake us up about the communication skill that we do need, our students do need. And Gareth, what do you think? I heard you talk about this already, but you may have something to add on this.
Yeah, we have looked at solutions to this, and we've in the past we used to have an objective structured an OSCE clinical examination exam at the final end, and students, we would draft in real live actors and present the student with the scenario and examine how the student dealt with that irate radiologist or a sensitive issue with, in terms of patient care, for example. So we've got a collection of videos, thankfully, that we use for students to watch, to observe, and then reflect on what has been happening, what would they do in this particular scenario, for example, and get the students to discuss it on the online platform as in a group tutorial. And that is probably one method. But no doubt there are a variety of other methods out there. But that is one thing we find useful, is actually get them to self-reflect on real scenarios or typical scenarios that we have come across during our clinical experiences to date. So that's one thing.
Thank you. This is a big challenge, even in our program, especially in East Asia, where we are heavily on scientific-based education. We found long time that communication skill we need to improve, and then we try to adapt this and then put more on the education in this subject to our students. Still, is never enough. So, Yutapon, do you have any idea about this, about the communication challenge that we may have when we have to switch from face-to-face to education to the online or virtual training?
Thank you very much for the question. I think in the past, we also have this kind of problems too. But luckily, our programs redesign the curriculum to have before the student go to the clinical practice, we have and small group exams, and we give the random question to the student for the scenarios that they need to do the role play to handle the communication between patient, between the staff or colleague before they actually go to the clinical practice. And then before the COVID, after the student has the clinical practice, they come back and we have the comprehensive exam to check like pre-test, post-test. And then when we have the COVID, I think my colleague at the department would take the same approach. Like we can have the student to do the random scenario to handle the patient communication as a role play, and then do the self video recording and send back to the course instructors to check and give the feedback. I think what we are doing like this.
All right, and I think we kind of come to the final of the program today, and I would like all the educators to have a final word that you want to pass on to your colleagues, to your students, and anyone who is watching this program. And let's start with Dr. Subianto. What do you want to say to them? Anything?
Thank you very much for Dr. Newman, Jutapon, and all speakers. Yes, yeah, and also our friends from Indonesia. Keep fighting and stay safe and health for you all. That's all.
Thank you, thank you. And next we go to Robin.
Well, to all educators out there, you have a huge challenge and stressor to cope with our COVID-19 new normal, as they call it. What I would just leave with this message is that just remember simulation and all these electronic strategies and tools are great, but nothing replaces hands-on clinical education. And the better the student is prepared to do that, as is mentioned in all the talks and the dialogue here, the better the patient will receive good quality and timely care.
Thank you. And now it's your turn, Hester.
Thank you, Napapung. First, may I just applaud both you and Yutapun for this creative initiative, because it is for me a reflection of what we need to do: remain flexible, be resilient, be open-minded, learn as much as we can from each other, share lessons, and this aspect of keep on learning will just help us to become better and better. So good luck to everybody around the world, and also applauding our students for being willing to learn also in this uncertain environment. Thank you.
Thank you. And now it's your turn, Gareth.
I'm not sure I could beat Hester's message there, but I applaud. Thank you for the ISRT for bringing us educators all together. And it seems there's a common message. We've all got a common situation or problem to deal with here, and we've opened that pot and all come up with all different solutions. So we're not all we're all in the same boat, so to speak. I also want to applaud the educators who are dealing with this in a very constructive manner and doing the best for our future radiographers around the world. And lastly, I probably want to thank all those radiographers around the world that are on the front line dealing with these very ill patients and this pandemic, and thank them for their professionalism and their hard work and dealing under these extreme pressures. So thank you very much.
And now it's your turn, the ISRT Director of Education, Dr. Yutapon.
Thank you very much. I think as an ISRT Director of Education, I think we with Napapong, we do the. Can you hear me? Okay. As a Director of Education, I think we plan a lot of webinars throughout the year. So please stay tuned and then subscribe or add friend with the ISRT Facebook. And then I recommend you to follow ISRT page on the Facebook so you get the latest update for the education.
Thank you. And actually, we have Madam President here, Donna Newman. You have been with us for quite a long time in this program. I would like you to have a final word to conclude this session.
I learned a lot from these key experts, our educators from all of our regions. I want to thank you for sharing with us your knowledge and your ideas. One of the key strategies for the ISRT is networking and collaboration. And I see from this session, there's many more sessions we can do to network and collaborate our educators to bring best practices back to our countries. So thank you, and stay tuned for more great sessions. And I just can't thank you enough for taking time for our members around the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. And I would like to have a round of applause for our four speakers and also panelists from ISRT. Thank you, Dr. Sukiyanto,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Robin Hester, and also Gareth Thomas. And for you from around the world, if you have any comments or what you want us to have on this Facebook Live, you can leave a message to us and I will try our best to accommodate your need. And again, thank you so much. Have a good day, a good evening, and goodbye.
Bye.